There's something in the sewers. There was once a group of sewer divers. They were tasked to clean and search the sewers for trash. As the group cleans and searches the sewers for trash, they start to feel watched. One of the group members keeps seeing something big on the edges of his peripheral vision. As the group continued deeper into the sewer, whatever is watching them is also following them. The creature starts to get bolder, starts to get closer to the group of sewer divers. Another one of the members sees a glimpse of the creature. He saw its tail. The tail looked robust and rough, like it had scales like that of an alligator. But as soon as he saw it was gone, he didn't tell the other members. So the group continued further into the sewers, seeing more and more glimpses of the creature. At first they just saw its tail, then its torso, then finally its head. Although all these sightings were just mere glimpses of the actual monstrosity that lurked in those sewers. But the group acted all the same, just continuing to work on the pipes, except there was one member that took notice of the creature. As the creature grew closer and closer, the member that noticed it grew more afraid and wary of the creature. Finally, when the creature was just 50 feet from the group, the member told the other members of the creature. Finally, the rest of the group also seemed to finally notice the creature, but by then it was too late. By now the creature was comfortable enough to get a mere 20 feet from the group. That was when the group saw all of its features. Like I said before, the tail looked like that of an alligator. But it was all wounded, well, not wounded, just had a lot of scars, which scared the group even more. That was because it made the group think of what could hurt the alligator-like creature like that. The group and the creature just stared at each other for what felt like eternity. After what was 10 seconds, the creature lunged at them, the creature being more adapted to this type of environment. It was able to bite down on one of the members. The member that the creature bit started to scream, but the second he released the thing connected to his oxygen tank, water started rushing in the process, drowning him. They tore him to shreds, rolling him. By then the other members had already started to swim away from the creature, but since they were hours into the sewer, they wouldn't make it to the exit. When the creature was done with the member that it had caught, it started swimming towards another member. This member had a wife and kids. It was a shame that the wife and kids would never really know what happened to their father/husband. The creature caught up to this member, and instead of giving him a quick death, it twisted and whirled its tail and slammed it into the guy. The sheer force of this impact ruptured and broke everything in the man's body. But somehow he was still alive. Albeit he can't move since everything is broken. So he just drifted there aimlessly, as if to make the man suffer even more, just left him. As the creature left, it went after another one of the members. This one didn't have a wife or kids, and all his family members were already dead, so no one would miss him. The guy knew this, so he just accepted his fate. The creature just opened its mouth and just swallowed the man whole. Now there was just 2 men left. The creature, as if out of energy, just let them get a couple 100 feet from the creature, as if giving the last members false hope, and then it suddenly accelerated towards the last 2 members and killed them. No one knows what happened to those sewer divers, but people are still sent down there and never come back. When the higher-ups saw this creature, they were shocked and horrified that such a creature could live and even exist in those sewers. So before, they had sent 4 men which first had escaped with their lives. Then they sent the same men, but with 4 other men in their team, which all died. When this happened, they stopped sending people down there, but they did this to think of a way to get more men down there, but also find a way for them to survive. So they thought of sending 10 men down there with the most powerful and water-resistant weapons in the world down there, with shoulder cameras and the most advanced damage-resistant wetsuits. The team was also equipped with the Navigator sea scooter, so with this the men went down there unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Eventually they got to where the last team was, but they continued further. As they went further into the sewers, which was now more like a vast open ocean-like environment, but with no sign of life in any directions, but there was life in their massive horrors that were lurking beneath them. This time, instead of being tasked with getting samples of anything, they were tasked to go deep into the waters, but if there were any opportunities to get any samples, they were to get some. As the team continued deeper into the depths, it got darker and darker. There was no sign of any end. Luckily, they were equipped with bright underwater headlamps. When they turned on their headlamps, they were horrified to see hundreds of eel-like creatures all around them. Luckily, none of which paid them any attention. The creatures were like eels, but so much bigger. Some of them were possibly 30 feet long. They had no eyes, just flesh pockets, and they had small but jagged teeth which were in many, many rows that looked like they could rend flesh like paper. As they continued deeper, the creatures became less and less until there was just an open, vast void like space all surrounding them. The team was now feeling watched and uneasy, but they continued deeper as they began to see tail-like appendages. If what the team was seeing were tails, then whatever creature the tails belonged to were absolutely massive. The team used their navigator sea scooter to swim deeper faster because the higher-ups told them to. As they did, they began to see the bodies of the creatures. The creatures were absolutely massive, about 30 times the size of the blue whale. The creatures had very thick scales that were as black as midnight. Its eyes are like two glowing red suns, and its mouth is filled with massive rows of razor-sharp teeth that look like they can crush mountains in one bite. It had like a lure in front of its mouth like that of an anglerfish, and it had spikes that look like small mountain peppers here, and they're all over its body. When the team saw the creature, that's when the creature saw them forward and started swimming towards the team. Luckily, like a blue whale, the creature was as fast as a blue whale. The team panicked at first, but then realized how slow the creature was, so they just started swimming back up. As they swam back up, they encountered the eel-like creatures again, which again paid them no attention. But as soon as the Leviathan-sized creature came close to the eel-like creatures, they started squirming and panicking, which was bad for the team because it made it difficult for them to continue onto the surface. Which was not good because it made it easier for the Leviathan-sized creature to come closer and closer until it was basically right behind them. The team was eventually able to push through the eels and made it to the surface. When they made it to the surface, the Leviathan had stopped pursuing them. When they reached the surface, they decided to head back to the entrance to the sewer. When they got back, at first the higher-ups were mad, but they decided to seal the entrance off to prevent anyone else from going back in there. Sarah, the last one excluding Steve, went to the bottom. She was a good 2,000 yards from the entrance to this place when she got to the bottom. She would walk around looking oddly unlike where Joshua was, where there was a lot of vibrant and colorful fish and coral. Where Kara was, there was nothing of that sort, just silt and sand. She continued to walk around for 10 minutes hoping to see anything colorful or anything at that moment. She would see something, just not what she was hoping for or wishing for. At this point, she had been walking around for another 5 minutes. As she took another step, she suddenly stopped feeling electricity in the water. As she just stood there, she also felt this constant thing in the air. She didn't know how to describe what she was feeling besides the electricity. As she turned all around to see what was happening, she saw two massive orbs far and distant slowly approaching her. As she stood there, she was drawn to it like how a moth is drawn to light, and as whatever was approaching her got closer, she saw what looked like dots of light placed on the sides of whatever was approaching her. There were thousands of dots of lights on this thing, each thing spaced 10 feet from each other. She wasn't afraid just yet. In fact, she started swimming closer to this creature. With her flashlight on, she saw a glimpse of the creature's body and of its head. Its body was of course covered in glowing dots, but also scales were as dark as the void in space. Its general body shape suggested that it was a massive type of eel. But what horrified Kara the most was its face. Its eyes were non-existent, and it had a type of bigger lure in front of its mouth, far enough as to not show what the lure belonged to. The mouth was wide open, unhinged, as if ready to pounce on its prey. Since its mouth was unhinged, it gave Kara a full view of the horrors that lurked in there. It had rows upon rows of long inverse needle-like teeth. They were all covered in blood and had chunks of other creatures stuck between each semi-truck-sized teeth. It was just endless. Right when Kara got the glimpse, her flashlight immediately died. Kara was horrified to not be able to see what this thing was doing. In a terror-driven state, she quickly and forcefully banged the flashlight against her hand, each second feeling like an eternity in of itself. After about 5 seconds of Kara banging the flashlight against her hand, nothing happened, and the creature finally pounced and impaled Kara onto its teeth, killing her. Now back to Steven, as he was panicking, screaming in the radio, not knowing all his friends were dead, and all while the hundreds of things behind him were getting closer. He would swim faster than he had ever swam before or after in his life. By some stroke of luck, he would make it back to the entrance. By then, the creatures were literal mere feet behind him. He would crawl out and run out of the cave. Now, by then, most of the people that were waiting for them at the entrance to the sewers, and thus the place, were mostly gone. But there were still a couple of people there. As he ran out ranting of abysmal creatures, the people still there would call the cops. Steven would get sent to a mental hospital because no one believed him. The other people that were there with him were believed to have died in an underwater caving accident, and so no one would go back to that place for a good while.